Can you see my screen or do I need to share it again?
You have to share it once again, ma'am. The option is given.
Okay. Sure. Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So now we will talk about the, so we open our heart, okay? Now slowly we also need to now open the entire length of the spine, which is in the front. So that means your abdomen, your waist, your chest, your diaphragm, your throat, your shoulders, everything needs to be stretched. So what is the best way to do that is certain back bends, okay? So we start with very basic back bends like Bhujangasana. You can even do Ustrasana. And the last one, what you are seeing, I don't have Ustrasana's picture here, but yes, you can do Ustrasana and Dhanurasana. Once we do all this, it's like literally we have opened the body, all the muscles, all the joints, and now got that suppleness. And now we are ready, physically at least, to start pranayama. Okay. So this is how it goes. Okay. Now I have certain taken out from Ghiranda Samhita and different texts. I've made a compilation of all the advice which the sages have given, and I'm going to take you through it quickly so that we all have it under one heading. So posture, the best posture for pranayama, either it is first Siddhasana, it is the king of all postures, okay? Siddhasana, Swastikasana, Bhadrasana, Vajraasana, and Baddha Konasana and Padmasana. Now, why do we have so many choices? Because it all depends on your own present physical condition. If you can't do any, the best one to do is Vajrasana. If you can't even do Vajrasana, there is a way to do Virasana where you put a cushion behind you and sit. Okay? For people who have a lot of knee issues.
Suresh, can you please mute yourself? We have disturbance here. Sorry, ma'am.
Yeah, no problem. So, so you can do that if you have knee issues. And we use a lot of props in the Iyengar system of yoga. So the idea is to make the practitioner very comfortable. If you are in pain, you cannot be doing pranayama. So make yourself very comfortable and pain-free, and then only start pranayama. Now, best, I like to do pranayama best on the floor, because the earth, the bhumi, it gives you a lot of energy, okay? So the energy from the Vasudha is very important, that is your earth, okay? So you don't sit directly on the floor because all the ankle joints and will be hurt. So you can take a blanket or a quilt or a soft thin cushion which is firm. It should not be a, when I say soft, doesn't mean like soft where you sink inside. If you sink inside, your spine is going to become totally haywire, dole dole, okay? You need to keep your spine upright. So take a firm but a nice cushion which feels good on the skin, all right? And sit. And as I discussed, any posture you can use as long as you're keeping your spine erect. Now, why is it so important to keep the spine erect? The reason being, all our vertebrae, all our 33 vertebrae, they are just stacked up on each other like this. And if our spine is not erect, the vertebrae will not be stacked up. They will fall, okay, down. And there's no chain created. We need to create a nice chain so that when prana is moving, it is not hindered. So you imagine you have a car and there is a roadblock somewhere, okay? So then they tell you that, please, you can't go straight, take a diversion, okay? So you go, you take a nice sutti and you come back, and after 5 minutes, you realize you've come back to the same point, okay? This is what happens if your spine is not straight. You take one sutti, your prana goes and takes one sutti, and all the energy has been wasted. You've not moved from that way up at all, okay? Remember, the goal of the prana is to take from your base of the spine and go right up to your top, okay? So this is what we need to do. Now, what kind of place? Now, there is a lots of speculation on place. In those days, you should have a hut this size. You should have mud put on the cow dung, put on the hut, and you should have this and that. All that is great news. But today, obviously, we don't stay in huts. So basically, what I have just put down here is that your place should be secluded. That means there is no disturbance. You're away from the confusion of the whole house, okay? It should be clean, it should be airy, free from insects, and practice should be during quiet hours, not when somebody is, making a lot of noise. Okay. Preferably, what I've forgotten to mention here is you must use the same place every day, because when you do pranayama in the same place every day, a lot of energy and good vibrations are generated, and that starts helping you with your practice, and it keeps adding more and more and more. So the fact that when you just merely come into that area itself is enough to generate those good vibrations. So it's like a bank, it's like an account. You keep depositing, okay, and it will become a very good account if you don't withdraw from it. Okay, it's just like that. So noise, avoid noise. It creates restlessness, disturbance, and anger. And you must avoid pranayama at such time. That means if you are sitting very angry and you're very upset with someone, and then you think, no, let me just quickly go and do pranayama to calm myself. Believe me, friends, that's a very bad idea. Do not do pranayama at those times when you're upset or angry. Okay. So now what time of the day should one do pranayama? Okay. So the seasons. So the practice of yoga should not be commenced in these 4 seasons. That means if you're starting pranayama for the first time, okay, please do not start it in winter, cold, and summer and rainy season. Okay. They say that if we start in these seasons, we may get some disease. Okay. Now, since the sages have said this, we don't pay so much of attention nowadays to all these things, but I think we must respect the word of the ancient yogis and abstain. So a beginner should commence of pranayama either in spring or in autumn. So what happens by doing this, he's going to be less liable for diseases and he's going to be more successful in the pranayama. Okay. Now the yoga talks about 80 cycles of pranayamas, 4 times a day. Now, which is really not possible. We all know that. Okay. So what do? We at least aim for 15 minutes in the morning and in the evening. Morning, we all know Brahma Muhurtam is the best time where the energies are so conducive for pranayama. Okay. And we should know, so the best time for pranayama is the morning. Okay. And these are the 15 minutes you must, obviously, if you're just beginning to do pranayama, we don't do the kumbhaka. We just start with, puraka and rechaka, and then only slowly we introduce kumbhaka. All that is again how to do pranayama. We'll do that in another workshop. Okay, so now the best time, yeah, I've written here. So Brahma Muhurtam, and after sunset when the air is cool and pleasant. So morning and sunrise and sunset. Okay. Now, second most important point in the fact of talking about asana, so where we are preparing the body. So part of preparing the body is, one part is asana, the second is your diet. So they say you are what you eat, okay? So mitahara, that's what we have heard, whether it is Ayurveda or with yoga, okay? So mita means moderation and ahara means diet, moderation of diet. So in every yogi has to practice this. This is, believe me, how much ever I stress on this part, it is not enough. It is very important to look at our diet, but we have forgotten that aspect. So basically, a yogi needs to eat fresh, clean food. Okay, these are all different things which I've taken from Giranda Samhita, but of course we won't go into details. So basically, he can eat freshly prepared food, leafy vegetables, fruits, certain beans and grams, okay, and pure and sweet and cooling. So when you say sweet, it's madhura. Madhura doesn't literally mean sugar here. It means ahar which has madhura in it, okay. That means there's a component of sweetness. So it could be a vegetable, like for example, sweet yam. So that is madhura. It doesn't mean sugar here, please, okay. And the most important rule of food, okay, remember it's 50, 25, 25. 50 is filled with food, 25% is filled with liquids in your food, and the other 25% is empty. I have done many videos on mitahara. Maybe someday I will share with you guys. But please, this is the thumb of pranayama or yoga or whatever you want, your thumb of your life, okay? So this, do not forget Mitahara. It is really very, very important. Okay. So we'll quickly recap it. Fresh food, freshly cooked food, not stale food, fresh fruits, leafy vegetables, grains, that is millets. Okay. All kinds of millets. These are not expensive. And remember to eat when you are hungry. That is most important. It's not mentioned here, but I'm telling you, eat only when you are hungry. Okay. Do not just go on eating and munching food. And keep your stomach only filled with food 50%, liquids 25%, and other 25% is empty. Okay. Now these are the prohibited foods for a yogi. Okay. Now, so it's like curd is prohibited. Now in our Sanskrit, Tamil culture, we don't live without curd. Okay. So it's very difficult to find that balance, but of course, let's just find this somewhere. And wine, of course, is prohibited. Overripe jackfruit, I think maybe because it becomes a little intoxicated, probably that must be the reason. So these are the things which are prohibited. Even onion, lotus, all that is prohibited. I really don't know why, but yes, yeah, I've just used this information from Giranda Samhita. More important, one should not be traveling while you are doing pranayama, because your body gets very tired. Okay. And different places have different energy. And I think that is the reason they say you should not be traveling. Okay. The bhumi is different. Okay. Do not keep company of women. Now, doesn't mean basically that you should not do pranayama if you're traveling with your wife, okay, or your daughter. It only means that you should not be in a promiscuous relationship, basically, okay. So that's what it means. And you should not be warming by the fire, because your body temperature has risen very high, and pranayama itself will raise your body temperature in the beginning. All right. And avoid all these milk products, okay. Avoid hard to digest food. Avoid bathing before sunrise. Now, this is a very interesting concept, because we all have in our culture, the first thing we get up and have a bath, okay? So obviously we are not supposed to have a bath before sunrise. Again, fasting is there in all our religious practices, but the yogis are not asked to fast, okay? Because maybe at some point fasting creates a weakness, or maybe giving pain in the body. So that is what. So the yogi is asked to eat, okay? And refrain from eating only once a day, or not eating all. So you must eat, but eat in moderation, okay? So he may remain without food for only 3 hours. That's what is written over here, okay? So we have to take certain things, and certain things, obviously, because of changed times, we are going to ignore, okay? And he may eat digestible, cooling foods, all right? Next. Now this, again, I have compiled from different texts of the do's and don'ts, because these are the common mistakes I see people making, okay? And I would like to draw the attention here. Never do asanas immediately after pranayama, okay? So you can do pranayama after asanas, but never asanas after pranayama. Now pranayama after asana is also basic asanas, not those strenuous asanas, okay? Where you are like, you know, for 1.5 hours you are doing asana, and then because by the time you go to pranayama, you are tired, you're completely tired. You will not be able to do justice to your pranayama. And as we already discussed, mornings for pranayama and evenings for the asanas are ideal. Do not practice when the mind or body are dull or depressed. Again, I would like to stress on this. People think that if I'm feeling sad, if I do pranayama, I'm going to feel better. It's a completely wrong notion. Please do not do this. You're going to become more sad and more depressed. If you're feeling sad and depressed, please do asanas instead, invigorating asanas, okay, which will make you feel alive and full of energy. Longer duration of each asana needs to be practiced in different varieties, so that you open up your body from all different sides and angles, all different muscles open up, okay? So I just gave you some basic stuff, but of course you can try more. Bad and poorly performed postures lead to shallow breathing and low endurance. That means even in the pranayama, you will not, if you are doing kumbhaka, you will not be able to hold for a long time, because your posture has been poor, because your capacity in performing asanas has not been good. Okay. Now, it's very important that you learn how to control your intercostal muscles. Your intercostal muscles are near your ribs before attempting pranayama. So that obviously, that is why we do these spine opening exercises, so that when you are doing pranayama, these muscles open nicely. That's when your spine is going to become pliable, and when you take in breath, you are going to be able to pass in through every muscle and every joint. Very important to empty your bladder and bowels before pranayama. Now, here it's very clearly written that constipated persons can practice pranayama, okay, as the bowels cannot be damaged in the same way as the bladder. This is a very important point of information. Please understand that immediately you need to empty your bladder, okay. If you, of course, it is better if you empty your bowels also, but there are people who don't pass motions for 2 days, 3 days. Doesn't mean that they can't do asana and pranayama. They can do that. All right. Okay. Now, so some more do's and don'ts. Do not perform Antara Kumbhaka when your brain is very sensitive, okay? Because that time you may suffer very serious injuries, okay? Now, these are the points which we learned when we were practicing and doing Iyengar yoga. And please do not practice Antara Kumbhaka before you go to sleep, because that will keep you awake, okay? Internal retention, you are retaining your breath, you are going to become very awake. So this practice has to be done only in the morning. Yes, if you don't get sleep, you need to practice Bahaya Kumbhaka, okay? That means external retention. That will calm you down and it will give you good sleep. So do not practice Kumbhaka if you're less than 16 years of age, okay? This is a very, very important point. Today, we all make every child, instead of making them do we should just make them do Nadi Shodhana Pranayama, only inhalation and exhalation, no Kumbhakas at all, because that will add a lot of age to your face, okay? This is what has been told in all the Shastras. And most important, now you've seen that I've highlighted this sentence in bold. The reason being, currently the COVID times, okay? There are people, some people are shouting from the rooftop, do pranayama, you will not get COVID. Please do not do pranayama if you have congestion and cold. It is not to be done then. It has to be done before that, okay? It is not a remedy for cold. It is a prevention for cold, okay? So please do not do when your lungs are congested. Do not talk or walk immediately after pranayama, but do a long shavasana. Shavasana, I cannot emphasize the importance of shavasana. How much ever you do shavasana is not enough after these practices, because you need to bring your body back to neutrality, back to equilibrium. Because if you just think, you might think, I am not feeling tired. Why should I waste my time lying 10 minutes down? Believe me, friends, it's very important. Shavasana before a yogic practice and a shavasana after a yogic practice is very important to bring your body into balance. Please try this over a long period of time and you will know the difference in your practice, okay? And of course, an interval of 4 to 6 hours is necessary between meals and pranayama. And after pranayama, you can eat after 30 minutes, okay? Very important point again here is there are some people who feel uneasy after doing pranayama. They feel a tightness in the chest, a heaviness in the chest, or they feel that the breathing is becoming harsh or rough. In that case, please stop pranayama immediately, okay? Do not continue with it. You need to strengthen it. It is a sign that you need to strengthen your body further before pranayama. Okay. So now we finished everything before pranayama. One quick part I want to take during pranayama. I'm not going to talk about what pranayamas we are going to do, because that is a huge topic. Only thing is I want to talk a little bit about detail on these certain parts of your body, how you are going to keep them. Nobody normally talks about them, okay? But we were all trained to look into these parts, and I want to just share all that. So these are the things you have to keep into mind. You have to be aware when you are sitting. So we've already discussed that the spine has to be upright, okay? Why is the spine to be upright? So just like a flute, your flute has so many holes, your spine has vertebrae, okay? You need to stack up your vertebrae. So you need to keep your spine upright, okay? And in pranayama, the front of the spine is much more dynamic than the back. What is dynamic? Because it's moving. You're moving your diaphragm, you're moving your belly, you're moving your intercostal muscles, you're moving your chest, you're moving your shoulders. So you're moving the front of the spine. It is very important to keep the spine upright. Now comes the saliva. You all would be knowing that when we are breathing, suddenly we feel that there is so much of saliva accumulated and we don't even know. Nobody's even told us what do we do with the saliva. So what we need to do is you swallow the saliva only after breathing out, okay? But before breathing in. That means, and do not do anything while you are doing Kumbhaka. I'm repeating, swallow it after Rechaka, okay? And before beginning the new cycle. Please do not do anything while you are doing Kumbhaka, all right? Second thing, your tongue. Your tongue should not be pressed against the teeth, okay? And the palate, the top of your mouth. But just keep it very relaxed in your throat in a passive way. It's very important. Please, next time you're doing pranayama, check the tongue, because this is a very, if your tongue is pressed against the teeth, you are little stressed. You are not completely passive. You are not immersed in pranayama. Please remember that, okay? Now, of course, the eyes are gently closed, but the inward gaze, your drishti, your inward drishti, your antara drishti is towards your heart, your anahata chakra, okay? We don't tighten your eyes and create creases. It's just that the upper lid is very gently kissing the lower lid. It should be like that. And you should not harden the eyeballs, and quietly, calmly, your antara drishti should be focused on your heart. Okay. Now about the ears. The ears are alert but passive. Now you might think alert but passive. So passive means you are not straining your neck and all those adjoining muscles of the ears, but they are alert. What are they alert for? They're trying to hear the sound of the breath which is being created, the vibration which the breath creates within you. Okay, there's a nada which happens there. Keep your ears alert for that. Believe me, when you start using your ears during pranayama, you will reach a state of bliss very, very soon. Okay, and that I'm saying from self-practice. Okay, so the ears can be used to hear those faint rhythms of the inhalation and exhalation. Now comes the skin. Now the purpose of the skin is two things. Basically for maintaining the temperature of the body and for expiration. Okay, so it's a organ for, just like the kidneys is an organ for excretion, so is the skin. Now very important to keep the skin active, so that when your skin is active, you know what is happening. When you're, now you might think, how do I feel the skin? It's not humanly possible. Believe me, friends, it will only happen slowly. As I said, this is a journey, this is a process. The first day you are not even going to feel the skin, but as you get tuned more and more to yourself, you will start being aware of different aspects of your body. So you need to not tighten your hands, not tighten your fingers when you are doing this, but just keep them very passive. And last but not the least, your brain. Okay, we all know the yogis have compared the brain to the monkey mind. Just as a monkey jumps from branch to branch, our brain jumps from branch to branch. Just excuse me, I'll have a water. So a monkey moves without accomplishing anything. Similarly, a brain has thousands and thousands of thoughts without accomplish anything. What we need to do, we need to use our brain, because we are going to command the inhalation and exhalation and the rechakas. But at the same time, don't get so involved, okay, in that, okay? So keep the brain receptive and observant. Use it to induce the lungs to act without becoming involved in the action. For if it does, it cannot at the same time watch the process of breathing. So the brain has to be a sakshi, observer, Okay, do not involve the brain more than just giving the command of inhale and exhale and do Rechaka. Other than that, we don't want the brain to be messing at all. Okay, so let it just be a Sakshi. Okay, so we'll quickly now remember, faulty practices tenses the facial muscles, shakes the mind, and invites disease. Irritability, heaviness, and restlessness are the symptoms. Switch over to a breathing pattern more conducive to the body and mind and soothing to the nerves and brain so that they are rejuvenated and refreshed. Now, why have I written this? Because everybody just does the same pranayama every day. Just like you can't have the same medicine every day and you cannot do the same asana every day, you need to do it according to the way you are feeling, according to the season, how is your mood, how is the strength in your body. So you have to learn to use pranayama as a tool to feel better. Don't do it like a mugging thing, like the way we mug and just vomit everything. Similarly, go and do the same pranayama every day because somebody said Nadi Shodhana is very good. Okay, so we have to learn to go beyond that. Our practice has to help us grow. Our practice is not just to keep repeating the same thing. So we have to understand our own health that day, how we are feeling, and use pranayama according to that. So that's a very important point. Pranayama should not become a blind routine. You have to understand that the body and becomes tamasic, okay, after a point. And the mind is always rajasic. And our own self is sattvic. But through pranayama, we are actually trying to bring all. So first we make the body rajasic through asanas. We calm the mind, okay, through pranayama. So we make the mind sattvic. So this is what we need to do, okay, to come out of the body being tamasic all the time. Now we have to develop this body intelligence so that we can reach the mind, okay. So that is what the asana does, okay. Now when the pranayama becomes tamasic, when your spine is dull. Now, what do you mean by spine is dull? That means when you start sagging, when you don't sit actively and push your spine up, then your pranayama is a sattvic pranayama. Otherwise, it is a tamasic. It is just inhalation and exhalation, just the act of respiration. Please understand, do not get confused with pranayama and respiration, okay? So only when the torso is firm, the brain receptive, and the self-attentive is pranayama sattvic. That's why I put that in bold. Now, to get the pranayama right, again, there are two conditions. What is this? Tell me quickly. Abhyasa and Vairagya.
Vairagya.
Yes, Abhyasa and Vairagya. So I've just written it as practice and surrender of desire. So everywhere if you see, so beautifully Patanjali has connected everything, one without the other. So Abhyasa and Vairagya. Keep doing Abhyasa, keep doing pranayama. Don't expect anything. We get the phala of our karma that Krishna has promised us in the Bhagavad Gita. So we don't have to do that. Now, one very common thing which people tell me that when they do asanas and pranayama, a lot of heat is generated and they feel very hot. So again, it depends on which place you are. Of course, if you are in cold countries and cool climates, that might not happen. But especially in South here, it is a problem. So that is why we have this oil applying ritual, which we all South Indians do. We apply oil to our body and have a bath. Especially remember to apply oil on your head and the soles of your feet and have a bath. And immediately you will get cooled and then you can resume your pranayama the next day. Okay. Remember to rest again and again and again. All right. So now we are going to go into our practice. But I would just request you all, if you all have any, Sridevi ma'am, if you have, anybody has any questions, please tell me.
Farzana ma'am, we will take up the questions because I think if you start the practice, again, it may end the session.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. So that when I log in again, we'll straight away start the practice. Okay?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so any questions, if anybody has, please ask me. So there is one question here from Deepak, sir. Why no asana after pranayama? Because pranayama is meant to calm you down, okay? And after that, if you go and do asana again, some postures might not be easy. So again, you're going to disturb the flow of your breath. We've seen that when we do asana, it's not, we have no full control of our breath. Do we have full control? Very few people in this world will be having. So you're again disturbing your breath. So that's the way. It's like saying that when you have a bath, you first scrub your body and then you rinse your body. Can I rinse my body before scrubbing? Not possible. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. When am I to know I'm ready for pranayama? Yes. So when you start, so I'll give you my own example. When we were getting trained in Iyengar yoga for 2 years, we were not even allowed to talk about P for pranayama. Okay. We were not allowed. If we tried to ask, we were just told to shut up. So first, that is why we say, so there are different avasthas in pranayama. We all know those avasthas, right? So the Ghata avastha is where you bake your body nicely, okay? And then when you feel that when in asana, you are at least not getting huffy and puffy, and when you are able to do the asanas very calmly and you have control over your breath, that is the time, please start doing your pranayama. But remember, please pay a close attention to your mitahara, your food, okay? And then you will know. And start with very basic. So remember I start with Kapalabhati, because Kapalabhati is part of the Shatkarma. So when you finish all the Shatkarmas, do Kapalabhati. That should be your first pranayama, because Kapalabhati is also a pranayama. Yeah. Next, please.
Participants, you can unmute yourself and even ask.
You unmute yourself. Yeah, please unmute yourself and ask me. Or if you are shy to ask me, you can please type. I hope you all understood. I have a tendency sometimes to go fast.
There's one more question in the chat, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah, in therapeutic way, how pranayama helps. Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about a very good question. This is, now I'll talk about pain first. Okay, so the most common thing we use yoga is for pain, and of course for a lot of non-communicable diseases like heart issues and cancer and digestive issues and stuff like that. Now pranayama soothes your muscles. So we'll talk about different things. Muscles, it helps to relax your muscles. Now we know that stress causes the muscles to go into a spasm. Okay, what is a spasm? It makes your muscles very taut, and that is why you will see that people suddenly, when they get this sudden low back pain and they say, I couldn't move, Bayangrama vali irukkudu, I am on bed rest. Why that happens? If you actually ask the patient, besides having a weak spine, people who have not done asanas, there will be some sort of emotional angle to that. So why is there an emotional angle? Because that person has been very worried or stressed lately and the muscles have gone in spasm. The moment we do pranayama and we regulate the breathing pattern, our muscles start relaxing. Okay, so when the muscles start relaxing, creates space in the body. When it creates space in the body, prana moves everywhere and heals ourselves, because we are meant to heal ourselves. There is a self-healing mechanism in our body. How am I saying that? See, when you cut your finger, okay, the blood comes out. After 15 minutes, the blood stops. Which doctor is stopping that blood? Your inner doctor. And that is the self-healing mechanism. So pranayama helps to what would I say, accentuate that self-healing mechanism. Okay, so that is how pranayama helps in the therapeutic way. Yeah. Next question is, somebody has sent me a private question which says, for the beginner, what pranayama should you give? So as I said, you start with, once you do all of this, okay, and if you feel that there is no time for doing asanas, then I would like to suggest that please do Vibhagya Shvasana, where you do sectional breathing, because sectional breathing will also help you to open up all the different areas of your lungs. Okay, the lungs are divided into 3. So your intercostal, your diaphragmatic, your there is abdominal, intercostal, and your clavicular breathing. So please learn how to do sectional breathing, and that could be the beginner's version of that. Somebody who doesn't even do asanas, they can at least try that, because I understand that every patient, you can't make them do, you know, Shatkarmas, and you can't make them do extensive asanas, but at least try with basic asanas and try with Vibhagya Shvasana. That's what you can make them do. Next question, please.
Good afternoon. What is your take on pranayama for children?
Okay, so very clearly I have said there is no pranayama to be done for children. Before 16, yes, you remember that slide? Yeah? Yeah. So there is no pranayama for children, but you can make the child just sit down and ask them to focus on something. You can make them do dharana, okay? So dharana, what happens? In dharana, they learn to focus, okay? So that's where the focus increases. And again, as I said, you can also make them do Vibhagya Shvasana. So don't make them do those main 8 Ashta Pranayamas, no. You just make them do Vibhaga Shvasana, where they actually become aware of their abdomen, they become aware of the thoracic region and the shoulder or clavicular region. So that is just a practice, but none of those serious pranayamas, yeah.
But when they do, you know, like you said, the breath awareness, abdomen awareness, so children usually they go ahead, one step ahead, and they try squeezing the facial muscles and straining them. Is that okay?
It's not okay. So they don't know. So we have to tell them, don't do that, okay? Because then that is what we are going to teach them. See, children are such creatures with so much of energy, right? They're jumping all over, and suddenly you ask them to sit. So the idea is to teach them to do nothing. Every time we don't have to do. Sometimes we have to just be. So for a child, it is very important that we teach them the difference between doing and being. Okay, so obviously when you start with being, they are not going to be able to just sit and be. So again, we start them with asanas. So let's give them asanas where they are asked to be, but in a pose. Okay, so the good thing about asana is it is a static thing as well as a dynamic thing. Now, I hope you will agree with me. We are not doing anything, yet we are doing something. Correct? Yes or no?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Asana is the best place for children to be. So you put them in some simple asana, okay, where they feel they are doing, you tell them things like pull up your kneecaps, look at your toes, all those basic, very, very deep instructions which we give, okay? And you will keep their mind in control. It's a very difficult. Child is a big monkey, okay? And especially monkey mind. So to control that monkey mind, you have to keep it active. You have to tell, okay, look at your big toe, look at your small toe. Is it there on the floor? Is it being pulled? Is your kneecaps being pulled? Where is your thigh? When you talk like that, the child is so busy listening to you, it is staying in that pose. And without doing much, you've actually rooted the child, you have grounded the child. And that's what other practices for children we use.
So that means moving meditation or moving concentration.
Yes, it is a moving meditation. Yes, yeah. Yes. So asana, you can do meditation in asana also.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how it is. No, sthiram sukham asanam.
Thank you.
Thank you. 16 years old. Asanas. Asanas is, yes, you can start asanas from the age of 8, 9, okay? And if you feel that the child is very smart before that, you can start some simple things, and don't make them too many aggressive things, because the spine is still in a molding stage and we don't want to mold it in a negative way, okay? So always remember that whenever you do a practice, there has to be a counter pose for that. So if you're making them do a forward bend, please remember to make them do a backward bend also. Otherwise, if you're only making a child do forward bends, then you will see that the child develops a kind of a hunch. And if you make them do only backward bends, then you will see that there is a sway back, which is an extra arch in the lumbar area. So it's very important to know your art when you're dealing with children, because children are very susceptible to whatever you do. They are raw. Whatever print you put in, they will just take it. So try for 8, 9 years, again, depending on child to child and what kind of body they have, what kind of sickness they have, what is the energy levels they are carrying. So there is no one size fits all answer. But yes, as a teacher, you have to learn to discern that. Yeah. So one more question which has come to me.
Hello, madam. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.